Good morning. I think I'm on the right page today. Some of you are aware enough that if you don't find me about the right time that you look on my workshop page, but I'm always embarrassed when that happens. Even though I'm in my workshop, I mean, I don't intend to put that on my workshop page. Today we look at Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 20. And again, this is a report of telling of Jesus' activity that we read in Matthew. After Jesus has gone he calmed the waters yesterday on the way across the lake, and they get to the other side, at the country of the Gerasenes, or the Gadarenes, sometimes it says. And it says, when he stepped out of the boat, immediately a man came from the tombs with this unclean spirit. And it describes the man. And as I read this last night in a different version of the Bible, verse 6 says, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and worshipped him and shouted at the top of his voice. The version I've got here in front of me this morning says he ran and bowed down before him. And I guess bowed down before him means the same as worshipped him, but to read that word worshipped him has a different connotation. I mean, if you just bow down before someone, you may, you make a request, or you're showing them respect and honor that way. But worship is a little bit more to me that way. I think I don't know why it should be, but it seems that it's more of an act of respect, and to worship someone is more than just to bow down and make a request. And and he says and then he shouts at the top of his voice. I mean, and that's, I can just see that this demon-possessed man would do that, because he's been roaming around terrorizing, and people were just terrified of him because of his strength and everything that he was able to do, and says that he, night and day roamed among the tombs and on the mountains, howling and bruising himself with stones, and just a total wild man, a person that you definitely don't want to encounter. But he comes and he worships Jesus, and the voice of the demons within him, he shouts out, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" And this Bible says, "I adjure you, by God, do not torment me." And that word adjure, I wrote in the margin of my Bible, it can mean encourage, request, urge, beg. If you adjure someone for something, you encourage them to do the right thing. Or I shouldn't say the right thing, but you encourage them in their manner, or you make a request, as I said. So, he begs, urges, requests by God. Satan, this demon, all these demons. I mean, this legion of demons is a lot of demons. We all know that. And, a Roman legion was made up of 4,000 to 6,000 men. I mean, and could you imagine having that many demons, personalities? I mean, we talk about, people that have multiple personalities and stuff, and could you imagine just being torn by so many things? I mean, it's no surprise this man was, just totally out of his mind and totally uncontrollable that way. But he comes, and as we all know that the demons recognize Jesus. These evil, unclean spirits, they know who Jesus is, and they are powerless against Jesus. They cannot help. They cannot not do what Jesus says to them. But they come to him and they say, "Do not torment me." And it says, for he had said to him, Jesus had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." So before this man bows down and worships Jesus already, I mean, Mark is telling us after the fact of the bowing down, the worshiping, and the demons crying out, that, he says that, for Jesus had said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And the spirit doesn't want to do that. The spirit is comfortable living there. The spirit has a home. And without a home, the spirit, isn't going to have any place. So the spirit requests to go into this herd of swine. My name is Legion, for we are many. And he says he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. So this legion of unclean spirits wanted to remain where they were. This was their home. And Jesus sends them into this herd of swine, and they all run into the sea then and drown in the sea, which, is so backwards, because the demons want to live, want to have, but then they run all these animals in, and the animals drown. So where did the demons go? It's just a puzzle, because they're out of their mind. They have no sense of perspective and reality. And for the Jews, swine was an unclean animal. They weren't important. And so for the Jewish people, these swine to be gone would be no big deal. But to these people, the Gerasenes here, where it talks about, they were hurting these. They were some of their, they were the bread and butter. They were eating them. They were raising them as livestock, and so for the people there, it was a great loss. And the swineherds, in verse 14 says, the swineherds ran off and told it in the city and in the country. So, you think about, if there were 4,000, this legion of demons ran into this herd of pigs. It was a large number of pigs. And it says it was about 2,000 is what Mark tells us. That's a tremendous herd of pigs to be gone. And so there were several, people were watching over them and taking care of them. And when the people of the countryside came to see what had gone on, at the report of these swineherds, they found this formerly demon-possessed man sitting calmly at Jesus' feet, in his right mind, clothed and in his right mind. It says this very man who had been the legion. And it says they were afraid. What were they afraid of? This man was now back to who he should be. Think about that. This man would be able to return to his normal life, to his home, to his family, to being a productive part of the area. And he was sitting there in front of Jesus. So what were the people so afraid of? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But were they afraid that Jesus would, if they had unclean spirits, if there was something wrong with them, if they needed a healing, wouldn't they be excited about that? That this, or maybe they were afraid of Jesus, because they asked Jesus to leave. They didn't want him to stay. He said, verse 17, they began to beg Jesus to leave their neighborhood. We don't want you, But there are people today, yet, I say this every one, there are people today that want nothing to do with Jesus. They disavow him as the Son of God. There is no Messiah. There is no God, they'll say. But so they want nothing to do with Jesus, to just go away and leave us alone. And that was what the demons had first said, I beg you to leave us alone. And so these people, they were, the non-Jewish people didn't respond and accept Jesus. They asked him to leave. And so as Jesus was getting in the boat, Mark says, the man begged that he might be able to go with. And this is one time when Jesus has a different response. He says to this man, go home to your friends. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you. So often Jesus heals someone, casts out demons, gives someone sight, whatever, and he'll say to that person, go and tell no one. It's just like last Sunday on the Mount of Transfiguration, he told Peter, James, and John, don't tell anybody what you've seen until after the resurrection. So sometimes there was this secrecy about Jesus, or, don't go and tell. Or maybe that's some reverse psychology in there too, because, sometimes when we're told don't do that, we want to do that. It was just last night or the other day I saw this deal I've seen before, that the dad puts his two young boys in chairs by the table and puts some candy in front of them and says, now you can't eat any of this until I come back. You just sit there, and of course it's not long, and those boys are just shoving those things in their mouth. If we are told don't do something, it's just, that reverse psychology sometimes. But here Jesus tells this man, go and tell what I have done for you. Go and tell. Let it be known in your area that I am the Lord, that I have power over demons, that I can do all of these things. Jesus says, go and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you. And the man went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis. The Decapolis is a region of 10 cities that were kind of worked together that way. So the Decapolis, Deca is 10. So the man went and began to proclaim how much Jesus had done for him. And it says everyone was amazed. People saw this man who had totally been out of his mind, not able to converse with someone, not able to associate with anybody, all of a sudden sane and in his right mind, open, friendly. Friendly, I guess that's my reading on things, but he was changed from a person who was tormented and just basically mad in his head, insane pretty much. He was changed to his normal self. And sometimes we get so much going on in our lives that we too can kind of not know which way to turn, not know which way to go. We run around like with no direction or purpose because we're trying to do too many things. But this man knew his focus, and his focus was to tell what Jesus had done for him. And that's what Jesus asks us to do as well. Go and tell, live our lives to show others the grace, mercy, and love of God.